Troy Spence for this, all the way from Upline. A longtime member of the club, Lester Larkin, will tell us all about email strategies and answer all the questions you had about emails.
Okay, hi everybody.
Hi.
Okay, I guess I'll get right to it. Oh, wait, first,
Yes.
there's a lot of different methods of communication, electronic communication like Twitter and Facebook and all that other stuff. So, just out of curiosity, how many people use email on a fairly regular basis, like once a week? Oh, yeah, that's like 90%. Okay. Well, then I hope everybody benefits from this. And those who don't use it regularly, maybe you'll find more reason to use it after this. Okay, there's two basic email types, webmail and local client. Now, they both use the same paths to get to where they're going. And, I see at the bottom of the slide it says basic etiquette, so that's near the end of the discussion. Both types of email use the same path. They use the internet to get, from place to place. But there are some differences, and I use both over. I used to use just the local email client for a while because there were some real advantages to it. But then I found out that I wasn't getting some emails, and the reason I wasn't is because each email service provider has their own spam trap that so instead of sending it on to you automatically, they say, well, our client here doesn't want us to see this, so we don't think it's appropriate, or for whatever reason, they won't let it go through. So what I do is I use the webmail feature of my email service providers and go to this spam folder, and I do that now. I do it every day. I used to do it like once a month, but someone might be sending me some email that I really got to have, and I won't see it because I haven't been there for a while. And so now I do it every day. Okay, this is how. This is kind of how, this is a simple diagram of how email works. Here's two people, one over on this side. Said he has, for example, AOL email. That's a very popular email provider. And the other guy, I said, well, I'm going to put him, he's going to have email, Yahoo email. And the way they communicate is each. There's a speaker right there. The way they communicate is each email provider has their own server system. So AOL, if you're using AOL, you use an AOL server. And if you're using Yahoo or Gmail, anybody, Yahoo has their own server, as does Gmail and a bunch of other types. And so when your email, if you send an email, let's say you're on this side, it goes to the AOL server, and then the addressing is resolved, and then it goes to the appropriate server to whoever the target. Over here downloads that email, and it works in both directions. So that's a simple diagram of how the email system works. Any questions? No. Webmail uses a browser. Let me show you an example of typical email. Okay, this is a webmail. Notice it's in a browser, and I have a bunch of tabs. Here I have, you can't see it probably. This says AOL up here because this is my AOL account. And then I have another one up here that's Gmail. I use basically two email providers. Actually, I have more than that, but I only actually use two of them in real
Why do you use two?
It's just something that happens over time. I picked a service provider a long time ago. Well, my first one, I think, was Net Zero. And then they said, yeah, that's pretty funny. Then one day they said, well, we're going to charge you guys, all our users, $10 a year. And that's not real bad, but the thing is, there's other providers that'll do it for free. So I said, well, okay, I'll go to someone else. And I think I did Hotmail for a while, and which is now, I think, called Outlook. It's a Microsoft service. Well, eventually I ended up with AOL. And then later I got a Gmail account, and I forgot why. But it's, I use it for well, it doesn't matter what I use it for. I use them both, but I use AOL. That's my main one. I get most of my emails through AOL. This has a couple of advantages. One is that it has I get to go look at the spam folder directly. It's right here.
Just a quick question, do you pay for AOL?
No,
Okay.
no. I pretty much don't pay for anything. Email always works, and I mean, it's what's available. Yes, Yvonne?
And you can have several different email addresses.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
And you can have several with the same provider. Like I have at least two with the same provider. One is Les Larkin, and another one is, I got this name from The Simpsons, Max Power. That's one of my Max_Power at AOL.com. That's one that I use once in a while. Yes?
How do you know which server you got?
Well, regardless of your AOL address, you're going to go through an AOL server. As a matter of fact, I used to have a Netscape account, which was bought by AOL. So it shows up on if someone sends me an email at leslarkin@netscape.net, it comes right in shows up in my AOL email
So
account.
how do we get AOL on our server or our computer?
Well, you just go to their website and sign up for an account.
Do we pay for it?
No.
Make sure,
I think.
make sure you ask not to pay for it.
Yes.
Really?
Because they'll offer a paid.
Oh, yeah, you can probably have a paid service if you want. And that's probably to avoid, if you don't like the advertisements, which you can see over, let's see. I don't happen to have anything in my spam folder right now. I always get spam, but not right now. So this is I don't know why, but there's no, this panel over here, there's this tool here. This there's an ad right there.
Yeah,
See that?
ads.
So this is, I call it free, but it's advertiser supported. And, because they gotta make money, one way or another. And so advertising is how they do it. Yes?
Okay, I have 5 email accounts, okay? I can go into one, and at the upper right, there's like a box, and it has different colors for each account. Now, so I can go from one to the other. I also have Comcast, and I have an old Yahoo that I haven't gotten rid of, which was hacked. So you can have a number of them, and if you know what you're sending there, what you sign up for it to go to a particular mailbox.
Are those all with the same provider, the same service provider, the different accounts?
I go through AT&T. Okay, you're talking about who I have the internet with?
No, the email provider.
Okay, I have 5 with Gmail,
Huh?
okay? Because I think they're more secure than Yahoo is. I was hacked in Yahoo.
Yeah.
Okay, and Comcast, I have 1. I have 1 in Yahoo, 1 in Comcast. I had one when I was teaching, they gave us a mailbox
Yeah.
with a provider, but that one went out of business. And
Yeah.
they consolidated, so that one is off and never got one.
Phil?
I have 58 email addresses. 58. But there's reason for it. If you've ever gotten an email from me, you won't remember the address, but it says lvphil048-lcace@yahoo.com. Okay? Yahoo will let you set up so-called disposable email addresses, Yahoo Mail, up to 500. So you set a prefix, which I did, lvphil048, and I can set up a dash whatever. So if I want to have an account just for a particular website I'm shopping on, if I want to have one just for, you know, whatever, that if it's ever compromised, I can just cancel that email address without having to cancel my other ones. You don't have to do this. I'm guessing that you probably have that option with many of the other email providers if you want to. I also have a Gmail account as well, but I mean, the point is within Yahoo or within your email provider, you may have the option to set up some, under privacy and security, to set up this list of additional email addresses if you want to just confine them to certain websites.
And some places require that you supply them with an email address, and you might want to know, keep track of why are you getting spam?
Yeah, right.
And so,
Yeah. And you can cancel that account without affecting any of the others.
that's right.
Yeah.
And so it may come to like in my case, whether it's in my Netscape or AIM address or AOL or I think there's one other one. They all come into the same inbox on my web account.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's optional to do that sort of thing, but all of the servers, major servers, allow you to attach your email access through their server. So you could get Gmail through the AOL server,
Oh, okay.
and vice versa. And Gmail has more unique capabilities.
Yeah,
But-
Yep.
So it's very confusing, Chris.
I get emails through Gmail, and so I check the inbox every day, but most of my stuff is AOL. Linda?
So, you're talking about spam in email. I don't know, how do you know you're being spammed in the email? I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, spam is just, there's companies and individuals that send out gobs of email. They don't know you from Adam, but they want you to maybe buy a product or sign up for a service or something like that. So they send out gazillions of emails, and so some of these end up in your inbox, mine, everybody's
So you're
inbox.
saying they're hacking?
No, they're just,
Somebody may have sold your email address,
Oh, okay,
and it's advertising that you'd never really wanted.
okay.
and so if they don't, if they don't know you, you don't know them, but you get an email from them, it's
Right.
probably spam. And that's what the spam folder's about.
But your service provider, your email provider has certain algorithms built into their email system that look for flags in these emails that says, I think this is spam, and automatically puts it in your spam folder. But they can be wrong. So once you find a spam folder down the left side here on your menu,
Right, I've been in there.
go check in there because you may find some legitimate emails mixed in there with the spam.
And then you tell them, you have a choice of this, yes, this is a spam, delete it, this is not spam,
Yeah.
put it in my address
Yeah.
book so that it won't get,
Yeah, you
in
can help
spam.
educate that algorithm by checking, this is spam on this screen, or this is not spam in your spam folder.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe by now I should know. By now I should have some spam. It's been several minutes. No, nothing yet. Just advertising.
Don't confuse spam with trash.
Right.
That's just garbage.
Trash is stuff that you have deleted,
Yes.
Right.
that isn't gone yet.
Right.
Spam is stuff that your ISP or you telling it to do it, have said you don't want. And they don't want to tell you all their algorithms because that would tell the spammers how to get around things.
Right.
But a typical spam algorithm is you have one line in the email and it's a link to something.
Yeah,
That's almost always going to be interpreted by your server as spam. So think about that. If you send an email to somebody and all you put in the email is a link to something you want them to look at, they might not get it because their server may interpret it as spam. And there are other cases where you want to watch, somebody tells you that they didn't get an email, that maybe your email got interpreted as spam.
And also, think of spam as the robocalls that you get on the telephone. You haven't solicited it, but maybe you clicked on a link, or maybe you just looked at an advertisement, and now they think you're interested.
Okay, I probably should mention there are some boxes here that I probably should mention what their purpose is. I mentioned the spam folder already, and Fred mentioned the trash folder. Now this is something that's automatically emptied after it gets too full, and so you really don't have to worry about it. But the nice thing about it, if you delete an email, you know where it went. It went to the trash. And so if you say, oh man, I didn't want to delete that, you can go back and get it. There's usually a checkbox here. You can click on the checkbox, and then it'll give you an option. It'll say more here, and it'll say move to. You can move it right back to the inbox. So so it's not. Or maybe you just want to read it. Maybe you think you missed something. You don't have to send it back to the inbox. You can just read it. Yes, Fred?
And there's something you want to be aware of, because I just did it on my email. I was trying to look for Phil's email, and there's a button there that says empty your trash folder or empty your spam folder. If you move the mouse over there.
Oh yeah, the
If you
spam
click on
folder,
that,
there's a trash can.
If you click on that,
Yeah.
it empties that folder so you can't look up things anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just
Yeah, is
clicked
there
on
one?
that by
Yeah, there's
mistake.
one for the. You really don't want to empty the trash folder
Without looking.
just without thinking about
yeah.
it seriously, because you
There's
never
stuff-
know when there's something that you really wanted to delete. They'll routinely empty, at least AOL does, routinely empty the trash thing so it won't overflow and get all over your floor. Now, one thing you can do, at least in AOL mail, is you can create your own folders too. They give you some basic folders, and everybody has like inbox, drafts. Drafts are where you save emails that you're working on, emails that you sent, spam, and trash. Those are pretty standard. You also have places you can put, like there's saved mail. One of my favorite is scams. Now, it's mostly instructive stuff. Like, if I want to show someone an example of a scam email, I got a whole collection of them. Lately, I've been getting. They say they're from AOL, saying your account's going to be canceled. And of course, they want you to go in there and click on a link and infect your computer or whatever or whatever they want to do. I don't know what they're going to do because I never click on those links. Because here's one way you can tell if it's really from AOL, which it never is, but if you go, let's see if I can do it here we go. Here's one here. If you hover on it, Here, this one that's supposed to be from AOL is from kohar.frothyrotive.com.
What the heck is that?
And all you gotta do is
Sometimes
hover on
it's a
it, and all these things,
Yeah, it's,
none. I don't know how it got, I don't know how they got it without. Mersh.willix.com. It's just, and every one of these are, they basically say the same thing, that my AOL account's gonna be canceled.
yeah.
Nigeria, say Nigeria?
Nigeria.
Oh, I
get Nigeria too. Yeah.
I got plenty from Nigeria.
Oh, yeah, there I see one.
Yeah.
First Bank of
Yes, yeah, First Bank of
that's your
Nigeria, yes.
Yeah,
that's one of
Nigeria.
them.
And they're at AOL.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, but it's through AOL, it's not from AOL.
They'll make you believe it's from AOL.
Well, yeah. Well, they make you believe all kinds of different things. Now, my favorite kind of scam emails come from the FBI.
Oh, boy, those, yes.
Of course, it's not really the FBI. I had one here somewhere. Oh wait, I probably have to look over here. Here we go.
And then,
Oh, it says it's from me. I don't know if you noticed that.
yeah, look at,
And it's from Andrew McCabe, who's, used to be an FBI guy. And so, and my favorite I get a lot of them that say they're from the FBI. My favorite is when they say they're gonna come and arrest me if I
oh,
don't
yeah.
send them money or call them back or something like that. So when they say that, I like to say, well, I guess you caught me in my money laundering scheme and my drug trafficking. Come and get me.
Oh, no.
And,
look at
and
the-
no one shows up at my door, believe it or not.
Why would you
Look-
answer?
Yeah, why?
No.
For fun.
For fun,
I guess I'm like 77 years old. I'm retired. What else have I got to do? It's like an interactive. It's like a video game.
It's fun.
There's a real person at the other end who thinks he's gotten the better of you.
Yeah, but if they show up, they're gonna be in shock.
Really, yeah.
Hey, I don't know how much a ticket is from Nigeria, but it's just, they're going to be real disappointed if they do show up.
Show that one for Prime. I get ones, oh, your order was ready, but I didn't order anything.
Yeah, I get a number.
get a lot of those.
Did you see one there?
Yeah, I saw one, yes. You gotta be
Yeah,
careful with that.
Yeah.
Or there's something waiting for you at the post office or, oh yeah, I get those. Gotta be careful.
Well, Les is looking for his example. Let me make one more point about what he did, hovering your mouse over the sender's address.
Yeah,
We use this in the context of spam. But let's take your regular inbox. There will be emails that are spam that will escape the vetting by your email provider.
Right.
So you may find an email that seems to be from Amazon or seems to be from some place you've done business with that you would open without a second thought. But so when you're looking through your inbox, you really need to be cautious. Look at each one of these. Is this from somebody you know? Why am I getting an email from Amazon? I haven't ordered anything from them lately. Whatever little suspicion you have in your mind, it just takes a second to hover your mouse over the sender address and get verification that it is in fact from a legitimate operation. So, you hate to say this, but even in your inbox, you need to be kind of on your watch and just take a second, hover your mouse over it, and then say this is spam, and it'll move to your spam folder.
Yes?
A question. I use AOL, and for some reason, I don't have a trash section. So when I want to delete a message, I just delete it, and then it goes into recently deleted section. And then I go back into that if I want to, and then it says you want to permanently delete this. And I do. So does that go to the trash section, because I don't have that?
Well, it sounds like if it says recently deleted, that just sounds like a different way to spell trash.
Yeah, because it never
You're right.
came up on my section. I was wondering, that's the same thing.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Recently deleted is a term that AOL uses.
Oh, okay. Well, this, I have they might have, AOL has an application, their own standalone email application. Yeah, that's probably what you're using.
And I just noticed even said up there, somebody like got a message that's from Bank of America, which is my account, it says something about your account, it says, how do you know for sure that that is really a message from your bank? Or sometimes there'll be a thing that you click to go into your info at the bank. How do I know for sure that's really from the bank?
Well, sometimes you know, in the worst case scenario, you'd want to call the bank.
Right.
Or at least log into your bank.
Just go into it direct through HTTP.
Not through the email, not through the email, go through.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
call
the
up
web,
on
yeah, you have to go to the website, go into your account, not using a link from the email. No, never use a link from the email
Yeah.
to go to a bank. So you go into the regular, just as if you didn't get the email. You go into your account online, and most financial institutions have a secure email link on their website. If they are sending you an email, that's where it'll be. Either that or it'll be a physical piece of paper they'll send you. But no, but sending you a serious email, a real financial institution will send you an email that says, go to your secure account at the website. So never click on a link. If there's any suspicion at all, don't click on a link
Go to the
If you
web.
have,
on an email.
If you have, there's that one thing, I forget how you do this, it says to put this in your address book, to make sure that it's properly sent to you, email. How do you do that? How do you get into that address book?
Boy, I did that a long time ago, but nowadays I don't even bother with
I
it
don't
because
even know if that's still there.
if you get an email and it's going to go to one or two places. It's either going to go to your inbox or your spam folder. That's why I check the spam folder every day, because it's got to be, any email I get is going to be in one of those two places. And you can usually, I get about this many emails. In a day I get maybe this many spam emails. And you can just go down the list and pretty quickly tell which ones are the bad ones and which ones are the good ones.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Dave?
Yeah, to put an address in your address book, you can right click on the link that has the address in it. And then some options will come up, and one of them will be to add it to your address book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll help the spam filter work a little bit better. That's right.
Yeah, a couple of things. One is to remember to hover over who it's from. That's always should be your first line of defense.
Yes.
If you hover over it and it doesn't say your bank name there, then forget it.
And you got to be careful. Some of these guys, they might substitute a 1 for an L or something, lowercase l and 1 look an awful lot alike. Especially, there's some fonts that there is no difference. If you have this ones and there's a bunch of fonts that have just serifs on the top or bottom of a letter or a number, and those are easy to tell. But what's starts with an A? There's a very popular font that you just can't tell the difference. It's just a vertical line, period, and that's it. And so you can't tell the difference between a 1 and an L. And so if there's a 1, like if AOL, if it's in lowercase, it could be AO1. And by looking at it, you can't tell the difference. So you got to be careful of that too. I mean, what you can do is copy the thing and stick it in a like a spreadsheet, for example. On most spreadsheets, you can put it in the cell, and it'll say you have the choice of making it all uppercase. And when it converts to uppercase, then you'll know an uppercase L looks a lot different than a 1. Yeah. So that's one way to tell. Linda.
So what email address do you recommend? AOL, Gmail, Yahoo?
Well, you know, I guess in my opinion, they're all pretty good. You know, I just happen to gravitate towards AOL over time. I could have just as well gravitated towards Yahoo or Gmail. I think they're all pretty good. So, you know, whatever feels. You might also look at their. Oh, one thing I like about AOL over Gmail is I like their web page, their page layout. When I go to Gmail, they have like 3 different boxes. It's like the main box, promotions, and social or something like that. And I just as soon have it all in one. I don't like that. I want all my good ones in one box and all the scams in another. That's all I want. JJ.
Over the last year ago, there's been a few articles out about which one's most secure, and apparently Gmail has been winning out as most secure. Although I do have a Gmail and a Yahoo account. But there again, like I said, if you read the articles and check it out, you know, you'll find out, like I said, some people are reporting that Gmail is a more secure account than Yahoo.
Okay, some of the characteristics of webmail is that they're advertiser supported, which we saw, you know, the one panel that had advertising in it. It stores email on a remote server, which is good and bad. One advantage is that you can go to any of your devices and that email will be there without you having to do anything. Now this is more when we had dial-up and transfer of data was a lot slower. The switching between the emails took more time because every time you want to open a new email, it's got to download a fresh copy from the server. So that took more time, especially if there's like a picture in it or something like that. You know, like a big enough picture would take all day. If you store it on a server, they typically only have one level of storage. Like on your computer, you have directories and subdirectories and sub-subdirectories. So you have multiple levels of, you know, as many as you want, as far as I know, levels of storage so you can organize emails. Let's see. An advantage is that all you have to do to get an email account is just sign up with the, you know, give them your, I don't know, whatever they ask for, I guess. They want your name, of course, and they want, a good idea is to have an alternate email address that you give them in case you get locked out. They can send you an unlocking device to your other email account.
That's a good reason to have 2 emails.
Yes, that is. Good point, Fred. Good point. Let's see. A lot of people provide webmail, and some of you might have email that comes with your internet service provider, the people that provide internet to your house. They have email accounts. The disadvantage of that, though, is if you change internet service providers, it may or may not be portable. Now, I used to have Comcast, and for some reason or another, they still provide me with email if I, you know, not that I ever use it, because I'm scared that one of these days it's going to disappear. But that's one thing when picking an email account. It's probably better off not picking the same people that provide your internet service stuff, because you might leave them someday and switch to another provider. Around here we have Comcast and AT&T. Those are the 2 providers, unless you have a dial-up account. Does anybody have a dial-up account? Dial-up internet service provider?
Landline.
Huh? Yeah, you gotta have a landline to do that. Huh? Yes?
If you have the Infinity account, you can always have the messages from that account transferred to another email.
Okay.
Okay? And so you can
Or
keep track of it that way.
Does Xfinity, which is also Comcast, do they do that automatically, even if you leave their?
No.
Leave their,
I don't-
Email
I don't
forwarding, you have to
believe
sign up
so.
for it.
pardon?
Email forwarding, you have to sign up for it.
Yeah.
Gmail will do it for you.
Yes.
Okay, now, when someone sends an email to your Comcast address, and if you leave Comcast, will they still, well, you know what, you really don't know, do you?
You have to change your own account.
Yeah, you gotta tell everybody, hey, I don't have Comcast anymore. Here's my email address. That's the best way to do it. I went over the, webmail provides, okay, I mentioned the Comcast and the AT&T because they're internet service providers, but the rest of them are like standalone. They don't have, as far as I know, they're not internet service providers also. They just do email. AOL, Google, Outlook, which used to be Hotmail, is my understanding, and Yahoo. Those are examples that I have there. Local client. Now that's, if you have a local client is a piece of software that runs on your computer. You know, and maybe you have more than one computer, so you got it running on several computers. And so, a couple examples. I used to use Outlook when I had a job and my employer was willing to pay $50 to Microsoft. And Outlook Express is also from Microsoft, that's free. I use Thunderbird, I've used it for 20 years maybe, or something like that, or more. And then Eudora is one that I used for a while too. Thunderbird is very well supported. I highly recommend it, and I'm going to show you some of the features of it pretty soon. There's no advertising, so you know your screen is not is only email stuff when you're in your local email client. So it stores all the email, not on the servers, but on your computer. You can have it keep the email. There's an option in Thunderbird where you can keep it up there on the server until you delete it. Yes?
If I remember correctly, Thunderbird was part of Mozilla, and
Yes.
they spun it off as a freestanding operation.
Okay.
Have you noticed any difference, or that was probably in the past year or something like
Yeah.
that? Have you noticed
Yeah,
any
well, you're right.
difference?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Nope, still works wonderfully. They
Yeah,
still,
okay.
you know, keep updating it. And, well, it's probably big enough. I mean, so many people use it that it's, you know, it's big enough to pretty much stand on its own. Okay, now, because you're storing your email on your computer instead of on a server somewhere, that makes you responsible for maintaining, you know, for not accidentally deleting it, keeping backups. I back up my email on multiple computers. And as a result, I haven't lost anything. And you know, I probably have emails that are like 20 years old in my email folders. I don't know why I keep them that long. I don't know. Anyway, that's something you can do, but it does make you responsible for maintaining it. You know, if you lose it, that's your fault. Let's see, you have multi-level storage. Now, so I have emails. Let me give you an example here. Now, this is my email stuff, my local client. Okay, now here's my Thunderbird email client. Now, as you can see, you know, since I've acquired many email addresses over the years, I got up at the, I got to hold the button. I got Gmail. Here's Comcast. Oh, here's one from the LCACE picnic at Gmail. That's Fred. You know about that?
Yeah.
Because you were on it too. So, Then there's a Linux Club, a Gmail address. Here's AIM. That's the one. That's my main email account. That's the one I use most. Then there's another one from Yahoo. There's my Max Power. Now notice here's one from AT&T. Notice that those are all different providers, but I can get those emails into one email client, so they're all in the same place. They have a uniform appearance, so whether I get an email through Comcast or AT&T or Gmail, they all look the same. They all display the same. So it's all in the management of them, deleting and storing and stuff. It's all uniform. Now I mentioned that you can have multiple levels of storage. Now here's this one right here. Well, first of all these what I have about 9 different email providers here. Now I store it in what's called local folders, and it has its own deleted. Oh, by the way, Thunderbird's also changed the. Let me go open up the. They used to call it trash. Now they call it deleted. They just changed the name. Same thing though. It does the same thing. So in local folders, you can, now here's my household folder. I have lots of different folders. I have finance and health and place I used to work, Eagle Test Systems. So I have all these folders, but those folders can have subfolders. This is something you can do in an email client. So I have, under household, I have telephone, and over the years I've had a bunch of different telephone providers. Right now I have Magic Jack, that's right there. I keep all my email from Magic Jack in there. And I have a cell phone, it's called Track Phone, and I have 3 different phones there. And they all have their separate email folders. So that's a nice thing about a local email client is you can track that stuff. And if you're trying to run a paperless office, as I try to do, in spite of what the post office thinks, this is something you pretty much got to have, because regardless of where the email comes from or through, you have a place to store it, and you can store it all uniformly, exactly where you want.
Lester?
Yes?
How do you get your emails into the subfolder?
Oh, you just drag and drop.
You don't have rules set up?
Oh, no, it's all done manually.
Okay. Because AOL, you could create a rule to say if it comes from this person, put it in this folder.
Yeah, yeah.
And AOL right now is free on smartphones. I don't know.
Well, you know what, if AOL were my only email provider, that'd be okay.
Oh, when I said, Outlook is free.
Oh, Outlook.
It's free
on
smartphone.
Yeah. Okay, so Outlook is,
And
what
Outlook
is
has
Outlook?
this capability to write rules.
Yeah.
Microsoft.
Outlook used to be,
Microsoft.
Outlook, yeah. Outlook used to be a local email client, but I think they've changed since then.
They have a capability to support things that use Microsoft Exchange, which is a mail server,
Yeah.
through a web server.
Also, I noticed you got the POP3, that's for local. If you're in the cloud, it's IMAP.
Well,
I have
that may be true.
Yeah.
I have a slide that describes the that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. Okay. I labeled all of my email accounts as POP3.
Yeah, local, yes.
At least one of them is an IMAP. Well, is that true? I'm not sure it is.
Comcast, well, they used to have POP3, but now I have IMAP on Comcast. When I set it up, it gives you a choice. Which one do you want? Right. There's a choice there.
Yes, Fred?
Yeah, I think several of them will default to IMAP now.
Yeah.
And they won't tell you about POP3.
Yeah.
And that's, so you gotta fight to get POP3.
Yeah, I think with Comcast, it's IMAP.
Yeah.
I also have local. I have Outlook local, but I made it to I made it IMAP. It could be either way.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. When I want to delete an email, I want it to be deleted from all my devices. I don't want to have to go through the POP.
Yeah.
If you're in POP, it'll just be on locally on your computer. But then when
Right.
you want to delete something, well, it's just going to delete in your local, not in your IMAP, in your cloud.
Yeah.
There used to be a setting, at least in Thunderbird, that you
Yeah.
had the choice. So do you want to take it off the server or do you not?
Yes.
Yeah. There's choices. Yeah.
So it's, you make that decision.
Yeah.
I found that my Thunderbird got too big, and then
Yeah.
they made some changes, and then I couldn't put my emails on it.
Yeah. There's.
And then I stopped using it, and I thought it was really taking up an awful lot of my computer space.
Yeah, I think you still have that choice. If we, let's see, if I go into my main email account here, if I click on this, it gives me settings for this
Right.
account. And I can go into the settings
And change it.
and, well, there's, it gives me all of them, doesn't
It
it?
used to be at the bottom.
Here we go. Server settings. So you can, here's server settings, and you can check for new messages that start up and do a bunch of automatic things here. Leave messages on server. That's probably the one you're talking about. So you can check that box if you want to do that, and it's you can have it either permanently or for a number of days, which you can select. You can select the number of days you can leave it on the server. And so if it leaves it on the server for your main device or one device, it'll leave it on the server for all the rest of it. Or you can have one device that as soon as you access the email, it downloads it from the server and then it's gone from the server.
Yeah, there's different ways,
Yeah.
but in order to do mine through the cloud, well, I've got iCloud on my iPad. That's how I had to set up my IMAP through the cloud. A lot of different ways.
Okay, when you set this, when you have a local client, you set it up for each of the different email providers, because what you want to do is, what you probably want to do is set up a password, because all of your email providers presumably will have a different password. Well, the local email client will store that password if you choose, and so you can, when you bring up your email client, it'll automatically check for messages. It'll basically log in to all of your different email accounts without you having to do that yourself. So there is a setup process that you have to go through for each email client that you include in your local provider. So I mentioned all of your email can be in one place and a uniform display regardless of the provider. I mentioned that. And here's some of the email providers that AOL, Google, Yahoo, and if you want your internet service provider, which is, I don't think it's a good idea, but it's available if you want it. Okay, now, Linda mentioned the two different, there's both incoming and outgoing email. And incoming email, there's two different protocols. And one of them is, Dave, you got something you want to say?
No.
To the whole group?
Okay. Too loud.
Yeah, okay. IMAP, it's called Internet Message Access Protocol, if you like nice big names. And
I know what that is. use
All
it.
edits are saved to your, and Linda kind of.
Yeah, that's the one I have.
All edits, like you're editing you're composing an email, every time you save, it goes up to the server. And so that's, nowadays, that's pretty much okay because the internet's so much faster than it was. In dial-up, it was kind of a pain. Or if you switched from, if you switch from one email to the other, it might, well, no, that's a different story. Okay.
Yeah.
POP 3, Post Office Protocol version 3. You edit updates on your local client, and when you save it, it just saved your local hard drive, so it's a lot faster.
You know, Lester, when I first got my computer, I got it at the end of 2000 or whatever.
Yeah.
I just had one computer, no router, no nothing. Well, I had the POP 3. It was I just had the local. But then when I started getting more devices, well, then I switched to the IMAP because, you know, it's just a pain in the neck.
Yeah,
Trying to delete all these from the POP and from the IMAP. It was, it was a pain.
Yeah, there's advantages and
Right,
disadvantages to both. I mostly use POP 3 because of the way when I back up my email, I back it up to my other devices. I just did that this morning when I've always backed up my email to this device in addition to other ones, but I realized that, hey, I haven't got Thunderbird running on that machine. I have all my emails on there, but it's not running, so I had to quickly set it up so that I could access all those emails for this demonstration. To show what, basically to show what it looks like and the different levels of storage that are available. Okay, now there's only one outgoing protocol, that's Simplified Mail Transfer Protocol. So that's, you don't have any choice. If you have a local email client, that's how it'll go out. Of course, with webmail, you don't worry about, you're not really concerned about any of those protocols because you're actually, it's like when you use webmail, it's like you're on a dumb terminal where all the activity takes place on the server and you just tell it whether you tell it whatever you want to do. Like if you're writing a letter, all those characters you're typing go off to the server to, yes, Fred?
Question about mix and match between those two. I use Yahoo Mail for my email, okay, which is on the web and it's IMAP and so forth, so on. But every so often, I'll be on a website or I want to forward an article that I find to someone else. And so I want to share with email. Well, my default email client on my computer is Outlook. So, so up comes an Outlook email page. And I plug in the address. So now we're talking about two separate address books, okay, because they don't talk back and forth to each other. And so you send it off to your wife or to a friend or whatever, the article and so on. And the sent copy remains in your Outlook folder, but it does not appear in your Yahoo Mail, because it's two separate things. Right. And so you need to be aware of that even though you're saying, well, I'm not going to get into Thunderbird, I'm not going to do a local email, I'm going to use AOL, I'm going to use this, I'm going to use that if you have a default email client that, in my case, comes with Microsoft, okay, you're going to have them on two separate places. I haven't quite figured that out yet. But.
Right, yeah, that's, there's so many different permutations of what you can, how to handle email.
What do you mean, Phil? You have a POP also? Is that it? Or you have all IMAPs? Huh?
I've got an Outlook.
I have Outlook, you mean the local, the software?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that same setup. Right.
Well, if I send an email out from it, it doesn't appear in my Yahoo Mail.
Oh, probably not. No. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
So if I'm looking for it again, I'm saying, well, I thought I sent that out. Why isn't it in my Yahoo Mail?
Oh, no.
I know the same is true of AOL. If I send it through my local email client, it'll only
Yeah.
be in the sent folder will contain that email. If I go to AOL and look in the sent folder, it won't be there.
No, it won't.
Because it wasn't sent from there.
Yeah,
Yes.
I make a practice of always sending, whenever I send an email, I always send a copy to myself.
you
Always.
can do that, yes.
Good idea.
And one
That's
of
a
the
good
reasons for that is,
Yeah,
if they don't get it, I can look to see if I got it.
yeah, that's a good,
Great
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Linda,
Why is he sending, something to somebody on Outlook? Why doesn't he just send it on Yahoo email? You can send
well,
it.
it goes through the Yahoo system,
Oh,
but it just originates in his local email client.
okay.
I'll explain that to you afterwards.
Yeah, the local email client and using a web browser are just two different ways of dealing with email. They both have different characteristics, advantages and disadvantages, and I use them both because for me, it works. I handle a lot of email and I like to use. It's not that I like to use every tool that's available. It's I have to use every tool that's available in order to properly manage all my email. But the main reason I use the webmail, the web page to access my email is because they trap some of my emails in the spam folder. If they didn't do that, I would never go to the web page. Because that's the only reason I have to go there, because I know that they're going to grab some of my emails that are legitimate and stick them in the spam folder, and I never see them. So that's otherwise, I'd much rather use the local email client because it's more powerful. It doesn't, I don't have to take up part of my page with advertising. I have full control over everything, which is both a
Then why
blessing
not
and a curse.
just delete webmail?
Well, you can't delete webmail. It's a feature that exists. It's like, you don't always use the rakes and the shovels in your tool shed, but well, you can delete those.
Yeah.
But with webmail, it's just a feature you can use if you want to, and if you want to get every email that anyone ever sent to you, you got to use webmail because I don't know whether it's on purpose. Maybe that's the reason that they occasionally throw a perfectly good email in the spam, so you'll go there and see their advertising. That might be their purpose in doing that, because some of those things are obviously, they're from a friend. They should have no business being in my spam folder, but they show up there. So, I'm forced to do it.
Lester, there is no Thunderbird mail, is there?
As far as I know, there's not.
Yeah, so Thunderbird is not an email provider like AOL or Yahoo or whatever. It is a collection.
Yeah, it's a piece of software that runs locally on your computer.
Yeah.
But there is Netscape mail, or there was.
There was.
So that piece could be your.
Could be, yeah.
Could be your server for Thunderbird.
If you sign up Thunderbird, you wouldn't have a Thunderbird mail.
That's right.
Yeah.
But you could have a Netscape mail.
Yeah.
Well, Netscape, they were bought by AOL. Netscape was bought by AOL. So if you send an email to Les Larkin at netscape.net, it'll end up in my AOL box. It's just the way it works. That's the way and it's because of the Les Larkin. If I use some other name, it might not show up there. But every AOL account that I have, actually I only have those two, that have Les Larkin in them. Oh wait, I have an AOL. It says there's AIM, AOL, and Netscape. Any one of those three that start with Les Larkin will end up in my AOL inbox. It's just yes?
I use Opera, and Opera has an ad blocker. So even though I'm on live.com or Gmail, I don't get the ad.
Yeah.
It blocks them.
Yeah.
I used to get nasty messages from live.com saying you got an ad blocker. And for a while they wouldn't let me in, but now I'm back in there.
Yeah. I have an ad blocker too,
It's automatic, I even set it up.
Yeah.
That's what's so frustrating to me about using the Internet Explorer, all this thinking that. I only got a 3 meg line, so it just slows me way down, so. Plus I get irritated all the time,
Yeah, I use an ad blocker, and every once in a while, I'll get, I'll go to a website and I'll say, hey, you've got your web blocker on, please. They'll either ask me nice, and, say please, or they'll say, basically, you can't go any farther unless you, give us access, full access. And I have no trouble doing that. There's just some, in fact, after a while, they started sending me, say, well, here, contribute so much to the ad blocker, and I really don't care that much about, it's a nice thing to have, but I could just as easily take the ad blocker off, and I think I'd almost be as happy. But it's it probably is a nice thing. I'm probably not seeing as much scammy advertising. And there's a lot of good advertising, and I'm perfectly happy with seeing that. I think these guys, that's how a lot of them get their income, and they should. They deserve it. A lot of the, I call them free services. They're advertiser-supported services, and if their advertisers are not happy with the results, they're gonna, not support them anymore. And those are services that I find real desirable. So, advertising is a good thing. Okay, which type to use between the webmail and the local client? Well, as I said, I use both, but there are ups and downs for both of them. If you don't use much email and you don't care about storing it, if you just look at an email and you're done with it, then you don't need an email client. If you have only one provider, one or maybe two providers, and you're perfectly happy going back and forth between the two, or if you don't save many emails, then just an ordinary web, just accessing your email through a web browser, that's fine. A local client, now I like to think that I'm running a paperless office. My wife comes in every once in a while and looks at the piles of paper and says, you're not running a paperless office. There's no paperless office in here. So, but I try, I really try. If you use email on a daily basis and you want to keep track of that stuff, it's a good idea to have a local client. And if you're reading your email and you want the full screen full of your email stuff without advertising, it's a good thing to have. If you have a higher email volume, or if you want larger useful screen area, which goes with the advertising. So those are the advantages and disadvantages. Yes, Fred?
Yeah, you're talking about you don't want advertising cluttering your workspace. When you use webmail, you get web advertising.
Yes. Yeah.
And there is no, if you're on a local client, there is no advertising.
Right. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the cluttering of the workspace and the larger screen area, boy, those are, I only need one of those, don't I? And the no advertising. Oh yeah, don't want advertising cluttering your workspace. Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned that because you were talking about pop-ups.
Oh yeah.
Pop-ups are webmail.
Oh well, yeah. I get pop-ups. Some of them I want, some of them I don't. And you can.
All I'm saying
that's
is if
kind of a separate
you have a
issue.
local client, you don't have pop-ups.
That's right. You don't. You don't have pop-ups either. I mentioned internet service provider, like around here it's Comcast and AT&T. I don't use them. I have one or two. Actually, AT&T, they don't really do their own email. They use Yahoo, if I'm not mistaken. So if you have AT&T, they will give you a Yahoo account. If you have AT&T as your internet service provider. So usually an internet service provider will make their email available for both webmail and local clients. They're usually provided at no extra charge, but there's no guarantee of portability if you happen to change internet service providers. So far, I haven't had Comcast for 5 or 10 years, closer to 5 years. But I still have the Comcast email address. Okay, I never use it, but it's there. Every once in a while, I checked it a few days ago. It still works. So I just never use it. Phil told me about this swell encrypted email service. That's kind of a new thing. Well, maybe it's not new. But for some people, if you really want your email to be secure and not seen by anyone other than the person you send it to, and maybe their kids and their wife or whatever, or husband, you want to use encrypted email. And what that does is, as soon as you you compose the email in your well, either webmail or local email client, you compose the email. As soon as you send it, it gets encrypted. It is encrypted on your computer, and then it's sent to. Wait a second. What do with webmail? What if you use it? What if you use it? Have you read? What if you use a web browser and compose an email? Obviously, I haven't dug too deeply into this, but if you're serious about, and I have a backup plan. It turns out, I the article that Phil sent me about this, there's a link that there's an outfit called Make Use Of, and they have an article. They mention 3 secure encrypted email providers, and they have a free and a paid-for service. So if you're serious about encrypted email, I highly recommend that you read that article. Now, the purpose of it is for end-to-end encryption. So from your computer to the target's computer, it's encrypted, so nobody can read it. Of course, it requires a password at each end of the email transmission. You don't just send it and the other person can just read it. They have to have the password, so you got to share that password with them. Encrypted email providers have their own servers, so this encrypted email won't go through an AOL server. It'll go directly to the service that's providing this encrypted email. So for additional information, go to this link. Now, what I want to do is I want to package up this slideshow and send it to JJ, and he will probably, will you post it on the web? Okay. We have a place on our website, on the LCACE website, where we have these old these presentations.
So you have presentations, videos, and where?
Yep. So you can go there and just click on that link. That's all you gotta do is click on the link, and it'll open up in your browser, and you'll be able to read that article. It's a real good article on encrypted software. Any questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
Well, I think I might know the answer to this one, but are there any differences between an ad blocker and a pop-up blocker?
Yes. I think yes. I don't know that there is a pop-up blocker. I think I've never had a problem with pop-up.
There is a pop-up blocker because sometimes if you put it on, then you don't get, like if you click on the link, it won't open up the link. It won't open up that box that's supposed to open. So if you were logging into someplace, say, and you wanted to use your Facebook account to log into whatever, if you wanted to do that, it opens up a little box. So if you've got a pop-up blocker, it's gonna block that from opening up. So you can't use it, which you need to take off for that particular instance.
I have
Yeah, I
that too.
mean, it can kind of be a nuisance, I think.
There's other kinds of advertising besides pop-ups.
Yes.
Yes.
You have an AOL client, which most people don't have anymore. If you did have an AOL client, AOL can embed ads in that when you use that client.
Yeah.
And we saw something there where you had an ad over there on one side.
Right.
That was like AOL might do.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was.
I didn't
It was in the
notice it.
spam.
You went and clicked on it. It's Kia, I think.
Yeah, the car, goes over the top right-hand corner.
But it wasn't a
Oh, there was
pop-up.
It said Kia,
Well, that was on the webpage, wasn't it? That was
I don't
on
know, but it's not a
part of-
pop-up.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't want to block advertising on my AOL email provider. That's how they make money. That doesn't mean I have to buy everything that shows up there, though, you know, obviously.
But they're a nuisance.
But, well, you know what, it only takes up a part of the screen. It depends, you know, if you just have a handheld device, it might take up a really good percentage of the screen. But on my computers at home, I got a screen that's that wide and that high.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's a TV is what it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, it takes up room, but I still have all this other room that I can do useful work on, so I barely know I barely know it's there.
Yeah.
So it's really not bad.
I wish I could get rid of it, I don't like it.
If you have a small,
Get a bigger screen.
It's about 21 inches.
Oh, okay.
It's just a nuisance.
Yeah.
but,
Well, you know what, I think AOL has an option where you can pay for the service. And then the advertisement, I think is that the case? Fred thinks that's the case.
yeah. Who wants to
So
pay?
just send them money, and they'll probably take the advertising away.
I already sent the money, I got them cancel, so I'm gonna go home and say, I don't wanna pay you anymore.
No.
Well, I wouldn't, if you pay them and they're doing advertising, then either there was a miscommunication or they're not living up to what they, yes, Dave?
Talking about advertising, there are good advertisers and bad advertisers. Good ones always have a little blue triangle in one of the corners of the screen, or one of the corners of their ad. You see that little blue triangle, that's one of the good advertisements. If you don't see the blue triangle, you're good, your computer's been infected.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, I hate to say this, but all the advertising I see, you know, I probably pay attention to maybe less than 1% of it anyway. But, you know, I just as soon get my services free and have this thing. You know, everybody's different. Everybody's different. So everybody has the option of doing one thing or the other.
On this phone, I have several ad blockers because sometimes I'm reading, it's all these, I can't even see my screen. Go crazy on here.
Well, I just thought of a trick. You know, both Windows, probably Apple does too, but I know Windows and Linux both have a provision where you can blow up the screen, you know, expand the screen. So if you do that and just shove the thing over to one side so you can't see the advertising, you might try that. Try that.
I haven't tried that.
Yeah, that might work. That might work for you.
Well,
If I would, it would probably work for me if I was concerned.
If you care.
Yes.
do you have more presentation?
A little bit more. Let's see. I haven't got much really. Oh wait, I want to go to the next one. Yeah, this is the last slide. Most people have been doing email for a long time and probably understand some etiquette. And here's a link to a detailed description of good email etiquette. But here's just 3 points that I picked out. There's a feature when you're sending email called BCC's blind carbon copy. And So sometimes, if you're sending an email to lots and lots of people, you really should send them all the blind copy, because some people don't want their email addresses spread out all over the world. And one serious downside of not using it is that you'll send this, basically, when you send an email, it has the list of all the people you're sending it to, unless you do a blind copy. So if someone gets, might be a friend of yours or an associate, you send them an email and they get hacked. Now, whoever hacks it has access to all those email addresses. And you really don't want to do that, especially if they're a good friend. You don't want to do that to anybody, actually. You shouldn't type in all uppercase letters. It's like you're yelling at a person. I don't know, a lot of the people in Nigeria who send scam emails, they do a lot of uppercase stuff. That's one of the identifiers. That's another, if you send an email in all uppercase letters, it's, oh, this is from Nigeria, delete. So it's a good idea not to use all uppercase letters. And the last one here is, don't forward email just because it says you should. Like chain letters and stuff like that used to be around. They probably still are. I haven't gotten any in a gazillion years. That's fine. If you don't send this letter to 10 people, you're going to have really bad luck. There was a recent, I watch old TV shows. One of them is Home Improvement, and Tim got a chain letter and something about if you don't, one guy didn't send this, and a naval officer in Borneo, and he got decapitated. So some of the stuff might be real scary, but just as a courtesy, don't send an email just because the email says you should send it, pass it on, because we get enough spam in our email boxes. So there's a link you can click on if you download this slideshow. It's the only two links I have, is this one and the one for encrypted email. So if you want more etiquette tips, that's a good place to go. Okay, any questions? That about wraps it up. Any questions?
I have a statement.
Yep.
Another way of using a blind email, and I'm not sure if it's all browsers, but I use Vivaldi, and I have a Vivaldi email, which comes to me, but it doesn't show my email. And also, if you want encrypted messaging, Signal is an encrypted message thing that's used. My grandson uses it. So if he has something he only doesn't want anybody else to see, and he sends it to me, or if you have somebody that wants to not let you know anything, you can send it through Signal and it'll be encrypted and nobody else can read it anywhere.
Okay. If anybody wants to know about that, maybe would you like to talk? Would you like to, if someone came up to you, what were you talking about? What's this Signal stuff all about?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to talk about it?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good.
Possibly.
So if you have any questions after this thing, you can talk about it. Okay. You had, yes?
Yeah. What's your opinion on, people putting their names in their, as part of their email addresses? Because when I first learned about, email, the instructor told me that, you should never put your name in your email address, otherwise people will know who you are.
Well, yeah, everybody has a different degree of privacy concerns. I don't give a hoot all that much, so I'm perfectly happy to put my name in, except for the one that's max power. That's a different story. But it's up to the individual. You can do that. A lot of people do that. You look at the name in the email address, and it doesn't look like a name at all. You can use numbers, I suppose, and you know, whatever works, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I kind of think, I do the reverse. I always make sure I have an identifier when I send an email. Because lots of times you send it out to a group, and depending on their client, it may not identify where it really came from. So you don't know, well, who's this from? I always put my initials at the end of an email. Always.
This may not be as relevant to this group, but you might want to share with younger people with whom you have some relationship, that in this day of online job applications being often the only way to apply for a job, they might want to have multiple email addresses, one for their friends and one for professional purposes. When I was a college professor, the university gave every student an email address, and it did have some combination of their name, initials, depending on whether the name was very common or not. There would be numbers or something at the end of it, at universityname.edu. And one of my standard first day of class comments was, if you have an email address where you were allowed to select your own name and you picked something that you thought was funny or cute or maybe a little suggestive, and you send me an email from that address, you're not going to get an answer. You need to use your university email address to me, or something that looks a little more professional. I gave that spiel one day, and a couple days later I'm in the hallway of the university, and a student came literally face to face with me. Why haven't you answered my email? And there was a question about whether a class was going to be canceled or something. The student is face to face with me in the hallway of the university saying, why haven't you answered your email? I said, well, I don't make a practice of being rude like that, at least not this early in the semester. And this student, face to face in the middle of the hallway during a passing period, loud voice tells me the email address, and it was one of those not so professional ones, and I just, that's why. If you want to be taken seriously, again, share this with especially younger people with whom you might have some influence. If they want to be taken seriously, then their email address ought to reflect that kind of professional seriousness.
That's real good. To me, that's good for every email. To me, email is a serious thing. That's how I communicate, and I like to be taken seriously. Even if I'm Maxwell Power that day, I still like to be taken seriously. Yes.
I just got one question. When I set up my email at the very beginning, when I knew nothing about computers, I did put in my full name, and I always wondered, now it's in there, if I wanted to change it to something else, are all my emails then redirected to the new email address?
You know what? I don't know that.
Depends on the portability thing.
Or if you want to separate, and I have an extra one that's more stuff you really want to read right away versus just stuff that comes in. If the stuff's already in there, how do you transfer to?
Well, you could forward your old emails to your new email address.
Yeah. But you have to go through and change it with everybody should deal with it, make sure it's changed.
Another way you can do that is you bring up both mails and two clients, or two, if you have both on your screen, then you can cut and paste them. Take everything in this list, paste it over into that other email client.
Are you talking about your email service provider, your name as it appears to them, and how they use it?
Well, anybody that wants to send me an email is my name at AOL.com.
Yeah.
So whatever I get will be directed to that, and I always thought, gee, I don't know if I really want to keep that, and I thought about being
Yeah.
really on my potential or something.
Yeah, it's probably between you and the provider, maybe they allow you to change your name in the same account, or maybe you have
Oh, and then it'll
to delete the old account and create a new
It'll
one.
get redirected automatically that way, you mean?
I don't know. Fred mentioned that in Gmail they will forward email to you, but it's possible that, I don't know if AOL does or not.
Otherwise, if I have certain emails I want to see right away that are more important, I could set up another email account, and then I'd have to notify those places to redirect to that.
Yeah, you can set up as
I'm not
many.
sure how you did all that,
Yeah, you can, as far as I know, you can, it's true, that you can set up as many email
Yeah.
accounts as you care to keep track of.
That's a good point.
Over time, it gets big, like I got 9 of them that, I basically look at 2 on a regular basis, maybe as many as 4, on a weekly or monthly basis. But there's a lot of them, I pay no attention to it all anymore.
What I would suggest you do is you set up the new account and forward the email to the new account, okay? And then when you get them in the new account, you look at them, do you want it, do you not want it? You can always go into the email and change the address for them to send it to. And then all you do is delete that, and it'll take time, but you can decide what you want and what you don't want. You might want some on the first account, and a lot of them on the second one, to distinguish who's got it.
One more.
There used to be a website, and I don't know if one still exists. I know the one that I used to use doesn't, where you could, I don't remember how it was called or how you got it, but if you changed emails and that company went out of existence, like we were Excel reps and I had an Excel.com, then I'd say everybody who has this, and I was able to choose who it would go to. In other words, not advertising, but if it's a friend, somebody that had my email directly, then it would forward to the new account. It would give them the name, the new account address. I would think it's gotta be still out, something similar out there. I'm not quite sure how you would search for it, but I would think with people having so many different emails and with companies going out of existence, that it probably still exists. I know when you're talking about your college or whatever, your EDU address, my college could be an EDU address, and needless to say, I haven't been there for a couple of days.
Okay. Lester, thank you very much.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
Good job.
Okay, thanks everybody. Don't forget, if you want to go out to lunch, get together in the back of the room.